everybody, it's Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me, and this is what I'm making today. Well, actually, I'm making the thing that's inside the envelope. Okay, so, inside my envelope, if I pull it out, is a pop-up cube. Now, this is one of my celebrating 5 years with Stampin' Up tutorials. I've made a few of these in my 5 years with Stampin' Up. This is definitely the largest one that I've made, so stay with me, I'll show you how I made it. For this project, I'm going to need 2 pieces of Daffodil Delight that are 11 1/4 along the long edge, and I've just left the A4 sheet to the full width of it. I haven't trimmed anything away, but I could trim it down to 8 1/4 if I wanted to. I'm going to score along the long edge at 3 3/4 inches, and again at 7 1/2 inches. And then I'm going to rotate the card and score again at 3 3/4 inches and at 7 1/2. Alright, so I'm going to leave my scoreboard where it is just for a moment because I may need it, and I'm going to cut away this flap and this flap and some. I'm going to give myself a mark. About 1/2 inch, and I'm going to cut away some of that. Alright, so I've got my nice big scissors, and I'm just going to chop that away, and I'm going to mitre my corner, and same thing here, chop that away, to the corners. Right. That's not very neat, so I'm going to come back and tidy that up. A nice neat edge. Okay, so now here I'm going to cut about 1/2 inch away from the fold, and I'm going to cut up as far as that score line. And I'm going to do the same on this side. And now I'm going to cut in from the outside edge to that score line. And the same thing here, I'm going to cut from there to that score line. Chop that bit away. And again, I'm going to cut away the corners. Alright. Now, on this piece, I'm going to line it up on my scoreboard. You could do this with a ruler and with something squishy underneath, but because I've got the scoreboard here, it's handy. So I'm going to score from that corner to that corner. Just like that. And then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to score from this corner to this corner. And I've gone down the 6-inch channel on my scoreboard. I'll fold that out the way so I can see what I'm doing. I've gone down there with a Sharpie marker. Just so that I can see where everything starts and finishes. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Oops, that's not very straight. So now I've got score lines where I don't want them. Let's get this right. Third time lucky. There we are. That's better. And from there to there. Okay. So I've got a couple of places where I've scored where I didn't want to, didn't need to. So I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to kind of iron those creases out. Right, and you won't get rid of them altogether, but you will make it a little bit better. And in use, nobody's going to notice. So while I have my bone folder out, I'm going to burnish all of those creases. That way. And that way. And that way. Okay, so now I've got this sort of shape. I want it to be that shape. And I also want to have a nice neat edge, so I'm going to cut away, not right up to my fold line, but about ½ an inch beyond it. And we're going to cut out those two markers. And I'm going to stick these edges down. So my pop-up cube will have a nicely finished edge to it. Let's put my pen. So this is half of my cube. And before I make the other half, I'm going to do one more thing. I've cut myself a piece of scrap Daffodil Delight. Doesn't have to be Daffodil Delight because this really isn't going to be seen. And I have a 1/8 of an inch handheld punch. This is 2.5 inches by about an inch, and I've scored it at ½ an inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Okay, so I've got a 3/4 of an inch flap sticking up in the middle and 2 ½ inch bits sticking up at the end, and I'm just kind of eyeballing where the centre of this larger piece is. Doesn't have to be exact. Punch myself a hole. I'm going to take my liquid adhesive and close that up, and again with my liquid adhesive I'm going to put some on both of those smaller flaps, and I'm going to line that up roughly in the middle of the seam there. And I'm going to put that on one side for the adhesive to set. I've given that some time for the adhesive to set, so I'm going to move on to the next step. While I was waiting for the glue to dry, I've gone ahead and I've put my tear and tape onto my flaps where I want them to be, and I'm going to start by joining the two pieces together along here. So I'm using tape and liquid adhesive because I want a quick grab, which the tape will give me, but I also want long-lasting strength. I've got some hair elastics here, not sure how well you can see them. I've got some coloured ones somewhere, but I couldn't find them, and I think because this is quite a big box, I'm going to need 2. So I'm just joining them together, just like that. And now I'm going to put one of the elastics down that little slit and into that hole. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other hole. And now that will pop my box up for me. So now I'm going to close everything up. And I'm going to take off the backing tape and put a little bit of my liquid adhesive. And close up those sides. And pop those in. And then put something heavy on top of this to make it behave itself while I do the same thing to the other side. And also, while I'm on the subject, I'm going to take the backing off this as well. Nearly forgot that one. This is the kind of project that sometimes it would be good to have 3 hands for. And I can see on this side we're sticking up a little bit there where I don't want it to. So I'm just going to trim that away. And there's my pop-up cube. I've cut 4 squares of the See a Silhouette Designer Series paper, and they are 3.5 inches on a side, and I'm going to stamp the images from silhouette scenes onto each of them. So I'm going to show you one. I'm going to do the other 3 off camera, otherwise we'll be here all day. I'm using my Stamparatus because I want these to be a nice solid black silhouette, and I want to make sure that they stamp really, really well, and also it's helping me to line up the sentiment with the stamp. Sorry, the sentiment and the picture, and make sure that they're nice and straight. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm giving that a jolly good press, and as you can see, that's not as dark as I would like it. The sentiment's okay, so I think I'll take that off just in case I do something strange with it and make it go funny, because that would be like me. Alright, now that's much better, but it still could be darker. So 1, 2, 3 tries for a Welsh woman. Alright, and I think that's about as dark as I'm going to get it. So I'm going to go and stamp images and sentiments on the other 3 pieces of paper, and yeah, I'll be back when I've done that. I've completed my stamping, and I wasn't loving the way that the cut edges of the paper were looking, so I've just got a sponge and my grey granite ink, and I'm just going around the edges of my squares, and you can barely see it, but it just softens that cut edge a little bit and just makes it, I think, a little bit more attractive. Alright. Right, where's my adhesive? Here it is. Let me put the top back on my grey granite before I stick my fingers in it, because that would be like me. And I'm trying to decide if this box has got a top and a bottom, and if so, which way round is it? And actually it doesn't really matter. So with my liquid adhesive, I'm scribbling that, and that's my first side done. I think this is the largest version of this pop-up box that I've made. It's my super giant version. I mean, I normally make them with the faces that are about 2 inches on a side, so this is pretty big. And the last one. I love these papers, and I mean, I had to sit down and think really, really hard which paper I was going to use and which side of the paper I was going to use. Okay, so sprinkle excess glue there, so let's wipe that away. Alright, and going to leave that then for the adhesive to set. And here is the envelope that I've made to pop my pop-up cube into. Now the video is already quite long, so I'm not going to go step by step with how I made this. If you want the dimensions and the instructions, then go over to my blog. I will put the measurements and a cutting and scoring diagram on there. Alright, so you can get the instructions there if you want them. I've made this with, I think it's quite a gentle amount of pop. It does pop up quite nicely, but it doesn't kind of fire itself across the room. If you want something that has got a little bit more, how do I describe it, a bit more power, I suppose, then what you would need to do is use a shorter elastic, or if you're going with the 2 hair ties, maybe tie another knot in them just to make it a little bit, give it a little bit more tension. So that is it for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I would love it if you came back and saw me again sometime soon. But for now, thank you very much for joining. Keep dreaming. See you soon. Bye bye.